Hello, today I'm going to be writing an expert advisor based on RSI. I'm going to be using the EA framework for this, and it's a good example of how you can add extensions to the framework for specific indicators. So let's play the disclaimer and I'll be right back. Before we begin, I'll say that a strategy based purely on RSI is generally not a good strategy. But this is a tutorial on programming and it is a good example to show you how to write the code. I will be using the Orchard EA framework to write this expert advisor. The current version is framework _2.01. You can download this framework from the Orchard website. I'll leave a link in the description below. If you're not familiar with this framework and you'd like more information, I'll also include a link in the description below and on screen to take you to the playlist where we have the tutorials on the framework. As at version 2.01 of the framework, it includes a number of example files. There's the MA indicator file, the crossover signal file, and some expert advisors, including the MA crossover with ATR take profit stop loss. And all of these are for both MQ4 and MQ5. I'm going to be using these included sample files and copying these to begin with the expert advisor for RSI. First, I want to make copies of the indicator MA and the signal crossover so I can use those with the RSI strategy. I'm going to go into Explorer to do this. So I'm just going to right click on indicators and choose open folder. Now here I am with indicator MA. I'm going to copy that and paste it. And this will be my RSI indicator. I'm going to do the same thing in signals. And I'm going to copy this as signal RSI. I'll make the changes to these later. Now, if you're familiar with the framework, you'll also know that these need to be now included in the framework. So if I just go up 2 levels to frameworks, there is this make extension mqh.bat file. I'll just run that. And it has built all of the include files to bring those new files in. I'll leave making the copy of the expert advisors until later. First, I'm going to just right click on extensions here and go refresh. And now my new files are here. So let's begin by updating this indicator RSI file. First, I'll just change the name. Don't need that comment now. Now I'm going to change all of C indicator MA to C indicator RSI. Now for the RSI, there are really only 2 inputs, the number of periods and the applied price. So I can delete this shift and method that were used in the MA. And I can also change the constructors. So I have periods, I no longer have a need for shift. And I don't need method. And the init method then will also not need either of those. As I've explained many times, I have 2 constructors. They are almost identical. One does not take a symbol and a time frame and will simply use the default symbol and time frame from the chart. But in case you want to use this in monitoring other symbols or time frames, then I have a second constructor where you can specify the symbol and time frame. But otherwise, the rest of these arguments are the same. And then I'll just modify the signature for the init method. The get data method is what will be used to retrieve information from that indicator. Down here in the implementation of init, I'm going to make the same change here. This init result check works on the parent classes to determine whether the parent class initialization has succeeded, and will simply fail immediately if the parent class hasn't been initialized properly. And again, I can delete the shift and method settings there. And here is the conditional statement where I'm handling a difference if we're compiling under MQL5. This is the if def double underscore MQL5 double underscore, because MQL5 uses handles to indicators, where MQL4 uses specific calls to indicators each time a value is required. And here I'm no longer using the IMA, so I'll just replace all of that. So this is the call to the RSI. Takes a symbol, the time frame, number of periods, and the applied price. As I said, there are only two arguments for the RSI, apart from the defaults of symbol and time frame. And then this check simply says if this RSI call for MQL5 has returned an invalid handle, so it's failed in some way, then I'll simply return an error. Then if we're using MQL4, we make a call to IMA every time we want to retrieve data. So I'll also replace this. And the call for MQL4 is the same: symbol, time frame, number of periods, and the applied price. But because this is being called for a specific value in the MQL4, then I also pass in the index, which is the bar number that I want to get the value for. And then here, if def MQL5 again, this is the way of retrieving information from the symbol, or this is the way of retrieving information from the handle. If using MQL5, we declare a buffer data, we set that as a series, and then we copy the indicator handle data into that buffer. Now this buffer number is passed into the get data, and this is because some indicators have multiple buffers, like a MACD has two buffers, the MACD and the signal value. RSI only has one, so this should be a 0. And we're calling that for the index, which is the bar number. We want to retrieve single value and calling that from or into the buffer data. And then we can simply return the value from buffer data. This is explained more in the earlier videos where we built up the framework. That should be everything we need for the indicator class. So now let's go on to edit the signal RSI. Now this is the signal RSI, and it's still just the copy that I made by copying signal crossover. First, let's replace this in the comment. This is the include statement to bring in the framework, and because we're simply saying include framework, this will bring in the most recent version, which is currently, as I said, 2.01 that we're using here. Change all of these C signal crossovers to C signal RSI. And this inherits from C signal base. Just replace these member variables that were used for the moving average. So for the RSI, all the requests I've had to write a simple RSI expert advisor have been based on buying and selling at certain levels of the RSI value. Most of them have specified a level, but I'm going to make those levels inputs in the expert advisor. So all I really need to store are the buy and the sell levels. The requests also haven't given a lot of detail on any other rules. I'm going to simply take the rule that once the price exits from these levels, then I will trade. This will also not guard against multiple entries. So for example, if the buy level is 40, then I will buy every time the price has been below 40 and then moves above. This may not be what you want, but that's a different programming exercise. Next is to change my constructors here. I don't have an index now. And the initialization will of course change. And just as before, I have a second constructor that does not take the symbol and the time frame, so I'll just update that in the same way and make the same change for the init call. Then I need the same arguments for the init function. Alright, so I have a constructor here that takes the symbol and the time frame and another that does not. They both take the buy level and the sell level, which are double values. And they both call then the init function passing in that buy and sell level, and here is the init function definition. And then the one method update signal, which is inherited from the parent class. Here in the init method, make the same change to the argument list. This is the same statement that you've seen earlier, and this is simply checking to see if the parent class has initialized correctly, and if not, then the initialization on this will fail. Then I'm not using the index numbers anymore, I'm using the buy and the sell level. So I'm simply assigning the values passed in to the member variables. Then all the work for this class is done in the update signal method. These statements are left over from the MA, so we just replace those. So I'm simply saying the two levels. Level 1 is the RSI value from bar number 1, and that will be the bar that has just closed. And level 2 is the RSI value from bar number 2. And this, remember from the get indicator data, I pass in a buffer number. RSI only has one buffer, so that's buffer number 0. So what I'm asking for is buffer number 0, bar number 1, and buffer number 0, bar number 2. Because I want to see when the price or when the RSI level moves out of those buy and sell areas. Now, all of this code was used for the crossover that we've used as a template for the signal RSI. So I'll just delete all of this. Right, so this is the signal for the RSI. There is no exit signal because we're using only take profit and stop loss to exit the trades here. So I'm simply setting exit signal to none. Then in the first test, if level 1, the bar just closed, has an RSI value less than or equal to the sell level, and if level 2, the bar before that, is not less than or equal to the sell level, then we've crossed below the sell level, so our entry signal is for a sell entry. And then the opposite for the buy signal, just using greater than or equal to the buy level. And finally, if neither of these are true, then signal is none. So now we can move on to create the actual expert advisor that uses those classes to implement an expert. As before, I'm going to use the existing files as a template. So I'm going to be using these MA crossover files as a template for the RSI expert advisor. First thing I'll do is just go to Framework EA and right click that new folder, and this is where I'm going to be creating my RSI simple. And then I'm simply going to use drag and drop to make copies of these. And then just change the names. And I have here the expert advisors both for MQ4 and MQ5. They are almost identical. So I'll be editing MQ4 first and then simply copying most of that into the MQ5. First, let me replace that. These properties don't change. Now, in the expert advisor, I've included the name Orchard Frameworks framework.mqh. That's where I've placed my framework file inside the include area. You'll note from signal RSI, for example, these were relative locations of the framework. That's because the signal RSI and the indicator RSI both exist inside the framework folder. If you put them somewhere else, then you might need to change these include statements. But the way I've constructed the framework, these all exist inside the framework folders. So I use relative addressing there, but in the Expert Advisor, I refer to the full path name for the framework. And let me just replace all of these inputs. Right, so as I said, the RSI needs a number of periods and an applied price. So I'm inputting those, and where the requests I've had have been for specific levels for the RSI, I'm making them inputs so that you can change them as you need. Now I also said that I don't have any exit strategy on this, so I'm simply going to be using take profit and stop loss values. Let me just add those in here. Right, so by default, I'm just going to take profit or stop loss at 100 points. And these standard inputs should still be valid. The input volume, which is number of lots that I'll trade, I generally build my expert advisors with the minimum lot size, just to avoid any possible mistakes. The comment will default to the file name. This is _file_, and then a magic number, which you should change to suit your needs. The purpose of this declaration is that the code uses CExpert, but depending on if I might use a custom expert for this, I might not want to use CExpert base. In this case, I am using CExpert base, but this define will mean I can simply use CExpert as the class name, which will be replaced by CExpert base in the compiler. So I'm declaring an expert class, and this expert is inside the framework. So again, if you're not sure what that's doing, then go back and see the earlier videos on the framework. Next, the signal. So we built a specific signal for the RSI. So I'm using the class C signal RSI to define my entry signal. The file that I copied here used a specific take profit stop loss. I'm just going to be using fixed numbers, so I can remove that. I can replace these two moving average indicators now with the RSI indicator. So this is the class that we've constructed, the C indicator RSI. I'm just going to call that variable the RSI indicator. Again, I don't need the take profit stop loss class. If you want to know how to use that, you can also see an earlier video where I built the ATR defined take profit and stop loss. I'll put a link to that also in the description and on screen. Then in the init section, this remains. I'm simply creating a new instance of the expert class. I'm setting some standard values in the expert. So I'm telling it the volume I want to trade based on the input, the comment, and the magic number, all from the inputs. Now I'll just replace these two indicators that were created for the moving average. I'll replace those with the RSI indicator we've just built, passing in again the number of periods input and the applied price. So I'm only using the constructor that uses the default value for symbol and time frame. And now the signals. I'll replace the signals already here. There is only one signal for this. So I'm creating a new instance of the C signal RSI, which again we've just built, passing in the buy level and the sell level. And then I'm adding an indicator to the signal. And this is the key of the framework, that we don't simply set a lot of values to cause functional loops and directions inside the code. I'm adding an indicator to the signal. So I'm adding my RSI indicator in this case. And the exit signal is also not needed, but for a different reason. Because this is just using take profit and stop loss. And then just as I added an indicator to the signal, I now need to add that signal to the expert. So adding an entry signal to the expert and passing in the entry signal that we created above. This take profit stop loss is also left over from the ATR take profit stop loss. I'm only using a simple take profit stop loss. And the expert has already been built to take a simple value as the take profit points and stop loss points. So I can set those just by calling these set take profit value and set stop loss value. This is all built into the framework. So again, go back to see the earlier videos if you're not sure how that's working. And that finishes everything in the initialization section for the expert. Now, because I'm creating a number of objects in the D-init section, I need to delete those. I'm deleting the expert. I need to delete the entry signal. I don't have the take profit stop loss object. And then I just need to delete the RSI indicator. So that deletes the objects that have been created earlier. And the rest of this code is common. It is in the example that I copied to create this RSI symbol, and it's also in the EA templates that are supplied with the framework. And this is simply calling methods inside the expert object. So on tick we'll call the expert on tick, on timer we'll call the expert on timer, and so on. I have no need to change any of those for this. And that completes the work to build the RSI expert advisor using the EA framework. Now this is the MT4 version. Let me just compile to see if I've made any simple mistakes on the way through. Right, no errors, no warnings, so that's finished. While I'm here, I will make the same changes to MT5, but I won't be able to compile it. I'll need to switch over to MT5 before I can do that. But just to show, the RSI symbol for MT5 is almost identical to the MT4 version. All of this code will be the same. The only differences come in some additional methods on the MT5 version. So all I'm going to do is go back to my MT4. I'm going to copy all of the code from here down to the end of the D-init. And then in the MT5 version, I'll just paste that in. And of course, this is for MT5. So now let me go back. I've compiled the MT4 version, yes. I will now go to the MT4 terminal, run this in the strategy tester, then I'll open MT5 and compile this MT5 version and do the same thing there. Here I am in the MetaTrader 4 terminal. Just so I can run the strategy tester and show that this is working, I've loaded the RSI simple EX4. I'm using Euro US dollars. I'm running for a short period because I don't need to run this for very long to see some trades. Using visual mode, set my expert properties. I've changed the RSI levels to 60 and 40 to make sure that I get some trades. At 90 and 10 there are very few trades that will execute, so 60 and 40 should give us a few in the demonstration. And now if I start that, move up the speed, and there you can see some trades have already executed here. So that's working, and I'll just go now into MT5 because I have to compile the MT5 version, and then I'll run the strategy tester on that as well. So now I have the MT5 editor open. This is the RSI symbol MT5 version, which we've already edited from the MT4 editor, and The only other changes that are relevant to MT5 here in the indicator RSI we've handled with the if-def conditional compilation. So I should be able to just compile this, which I can with no errors. Now let me go back to the terminal and run the strategy tester. Now I have the strategy tester loaded again for RSI simple. The inputs are 60 and 40 again here. So let's just start that. And I can see a trade is executed here, a sell, because the RSI has crossed below the 60 level. So that's been a relatively simple explanation of creating an expert advisor. It's a fully working expert based purely on an RSI strategy and using the framework. Remember, the framework is available for download and you should see the earlier videos to understand it fully. I hope you have found this video useful. If you have, then please click the like button. That makes a big difference to us. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, remember to click the subscribe button. And if you click the bell icon, then you'll be notified when we release new videos. So until next time, thank you for watching.